scene.
With just 2 rounds to go as far as your Grand Prix Legends Championship is concerned, it's open season and everybody's to play for. So we head to a circuit that, in terms of the vintage season of Lotus 49s, these drivers would have had the opportunity to race at exactly the same time. We're in Bowmanville, Ontario. We're just a few kilometers over to the west of Toronto, and we are getting set for racing action from the Canadian Tire Motorsports Park on the Global Sim Racing Channel. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone looking in at what is a very close championship to be fought for. My name's Jake Sperry. Alex Goldschmidt is alongside me for today's action, with Daniel Costello in the director's chair, assisted by Christian Deploy. Cameras provided by Dougie Beard. But as it goes, motorsport is one of the older circuits that you have on iRacing, and one that is maybe not run as much as it has done in previous years. But if you are brand new to what makes this track so good, here's a look at our GSRC track guide to get you up to speed.
Welcome to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, or as most fans know it, Mosport. This circuit to the northeast of Toronto is a rarity in the world of racing today. Safety standards and the desire for more overtaking opportunities has caused most tracks to alter their layouts over the years. But Mosport is still exactly the same footprint as it was when it was built in 1961. A mere 11 turns, most of which are high-speed sweepers, are dispersed among 2.5 miles, or just shy of 4 kilometers. The only alterations to the turns have been to the runoff areas, but otherwise the radii, camber, and elevation changes are all untouched. Because cars have continued to get faster through the passage of time, it's made this place a fearsome beast to tackle. Clayton Corner is particularly notorious. The blind crest and steep plunge combined with incredibly high speeds to create a punishing combination. Without many heavy braking zones, passing is often difficult. And other than using the slipstream up the Mario Andretti Straight, the only other option is usually Moss Corner. This double apex hairpin is named after Sir Sterling Moss for his suggestion to redesign it after he saw its initial layout. While the plateau-like middle portion and critical exit onto the backstretch certainly give it plenty of character, the heavy compression at the bottom of the hill that causes a frighteningly short braking zone makes this one not for the faint of heart. Formula One, USAC, and IMSA have all taken their turns here, but recently NASCAR has joined the fray by holding a round for the Truck Series. Old school fans can rejoice for the enduring popularity of this bastion of untouched tarmac, but any motorsports enthusiast can't help but smile at the thrill Mosport continues to provide.
A battleground surely to be seen, but when it comes to Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, this is a place on Lake Ontario that you have just amazing battling. This is a track that has been unchanged in terms of what it brings to the table, Alex, and that means that sometimes what makes it difficult is how known of a quantity it is.
Yes, Jake. I mean, one of the big things about Canadian Tire Motorsports Park is, there's a lot of undulation, a lot of ascents and descents, camber changes as well, but also a lot of opportunity, especially coming out of Moss Corner, going down the paved Mario Andretti straightaway, where we're going to see a lot of drivers getting very close in terms of proximity. So expect the unexpected going into the S's at turns 8 and 9 on the circuit.
Yeah, that's one of the great places to get the pass done, and the toughest corner on track is turn 2 at Clayton Corner. Down the hill, double apex, and if you are anything out of line through turn 2, say goodbye to your lap. your race, your everything out there overall. But let's take an understanding of this championship, because we've got the drop rounds all applied as far as standings go, and Henry Maurice has a slender advantage, just the 10 championship points over Mick Claridge. But critically, Henry Maurice has used only one of his 2 drop rounds with essentially a 1 non-score, compared to Mick Claridge, who has got all his drop rounds in play, and he's dropped about 50 points so far. Jorge Nieva has used both drops at 34 points back, still very much in the title picture. And then it's a game of best of the rest, with Kevin Verbruggen in 4th position, Gary Ho and John Olsen 5th and 6th, Arturas Kundelis in 7th position ahead of Gary Quellin, with Nicola Cocchi in 9th position, and Seb Tixier, masquerading as Seb Clapper, trying to go from the back of the field, finds himself in 10th position as far as this season goes. Over to the F2 standings with Alex, where those drivers who have a little less iRating have a very close battle on their hands.
Yes, indeed, Jake. Mats Linden just one single solitary point ahead of David Tomaski. Tobias Hardenby, Zen Carr, Josephine Becker round out your top 5 at the moment, with Donald Peake, Henry Vidumaki, Alan Graham, Thomas Villerhausen, and Sandeep Bandaji rounding out the top 10. But it's going to be very, very close. I mean, Linden and Tomaski neck and neck pretty much as things stand going into the penultimate round.
And neither of them here today, so that will certainly allow the rest of the field to close on in. The United States in control of the Cup of Nations, with Spain 24 points adrift. You got then the United Kingdom and Tuvalu there, 3rd and 4th. Mick Claridge representing Tuvalu for this season, with the Netherlands in 5th, and the wonderful team of Sao Tome and Principe, which is John Olsen and Rolly Wallbank. They are 6th, with Hong Kong in 7th. Italy find themselves in 8th, ahead of Lithuania in 9th, and Sweden rounding out the top 10 as it goes in the Nations Cup. But what about today? Because this is going to be a frenetically important sprint race at round 11 of 12. The 26 laps that they'll have to do today, Alex, are going to be some where you just need to find the finish first, and the result will be the bonus at the end.
Yeah, definitely agree there, Jake, because it's all about crossing the T's, dotting the I's, staying on the black stuff here at this fantastic circuit. But also, you've just got to watch everything. You know, you've got to basically have eyes in the back of your head at this particular Canadian circuit, and you can't leave any stone unturned. And it really is going to be a case of whoever finishes this race is going to be in a better position going into the season finale at Okayama.
They certainly will do. As with most iRacing official servers, drive-through penalty comes through at 17 instant points. Disqualification at 25. That is going to bring through. Hopefully, drivers will be able to avoid that as far as today goes, with a lot of important scraps to go. We take an aerial look over the circuit right now, which in terms of its condition, it's a little bit blustery at 13 kilometers an hour in from the south. That is going to create a cross tailwind along the back stretch, so expect a lot of high speed then going into turns 8 and 9. But ultimately, track temperature 32 degrees. I'd say it's in the operating wheelhouse today for good times. Mick Claridge, currently the fastest driver in qualifying on a 1:16.5, but there are a number of names who are not fighting for the championship that are in and around, which are looking to make life a lot more difficult. I look around and say, who's managing to do what? Jorge Nieva's yet to set a time, but Henry Maurice down in 4th position right now is going to have some work to do. Jack David Spickett jumping up to 5th, a former champion.
Yeah, you've also got the likes of Arturas Kundelis and Mickey Friesen, who we do know from other championships that run on the iRacing service. But we've got the car of, at the moment, I think it's Jorge Nieva, who is in the battle for the top tier category at the moment. And you can just see that you can hear through the throttle the input, having to lift off through certain corners. Let the car, let the engine do the braking, and then power out of the corner. But don't get too trigger happy on that throttle coming out of turns, because obviously these particular cars, you know, it's old school. It's no ABS, no traction control, and you're flying by the seat of your pants, quite literally here at this circuit.
you are trying to chuck it into the corners, and while these cars can do upwards of 280 kilometers an hour along the straights, the one thing they can't do is take that much speed through the corners. They're reliant entirely on mechanical grip because, believe it or not, this is racing in an era before we understood what aerodynamics were in motorsport. Jack David Spickett with the classic Lotus colours, 116.911. That's good enough for the second row of the grid. Pips Jorge Nieva by 0.008 of a second only going over the line, but Nieva has this final opportunity with this lap. Driving it about then through turn 6, now turn 7, opening up the steering as much as possible for the S's. Turn 8, early turn in entry, trying to carry as much momentum on the inside, really opening up turn number 9. The tiny corrections there of the steering wheel. White's corner ends the lap at turn 10. Nieva runs for the line, and what will it be as he crosses a 16.817? He moves up an extra place and holds the second row.
That was a pretty good effort from Nieva on that final throw of the dice, with him just edging out Spickett by just shy of 1/10 of a second. But no, it's always about those last little increments, those millimeters, those thousandths, hundredths of a second that you can gain just by making it nice and smooth and clean through the corners. And Nieva definitely showcased that there, Jake, to put himself on the inside of row number 2 with Jack David Spickett alongside.
Yeah, that's some wonderful qualifying there, but we've got our field set, so let's get ourselves ready for it. Mick Claridge is on the pole position on a 116.532. It will then be Oye Samayoa, who is alongside, who will be aura farming and hunting for a stage win today. Jorge Nieva and Jack David Spickett will be on row 2 with Nicola Cocchi in 5th position and Henry Morse having it all to do from 6th place here today. Arturas Candelis and Mickey Friesen will make up the 4th row with Gary and Gary on the 5th, Colin ahead of Ho. We move over the page then to John Olsen, who is in 11th place. Josephine Becker will house row 6, along with Ricardo Ruiz and David Rossi. Kurt Clapper will have Yannis Carpentier, there, the Belgian driver, in 16th, along with Jem Matzan and Michael Grissinger, with Yanni Lehmann in 19th, and Robert Plumley making up the top 20. One more page to go, 30 drivers here today, 28 setting times, as Juan E. Rodriguez will go from 21st ahead of Tobias Hanvey, and then you got Bjorn Ackermann a little bit out of position, along with Thomas Tuber, Donald Peak and Andres Bruno, 25th and 26th, with Zenkar and Matthias Maran then in 28th position. The two Clappers, Jason ahead of Seb Tixe, or Seb Clapper for this season, making 29th and 30th as they go. But they have just the half a minute to get themselves gridded up now, or elect to start from pit lane, which isn't necessarily a bad thing around this circuit, because so often you find there's a small tag at turn 1 or turn 2, and it does just junk the field up. Everybody knows how critical a race like this is. 26 lap starts now, and we're underway. Jack David Spickett with the best start at the front 4 as they all make their run towards turn 1. Nieva immediately attacking Samayoa, his compatriot, then for company as they will run to Clayton's at turn 2, leaving just enough room. JDS sweeping down on the inside. Claridge with a perfect start, but Nieva dropping back one, not what the doctor ordered.
Yes, we got one off and into the barriers hard, going through the first couple of corners here, Jake. So that's John Olsen in the number 9 car that's dropped all the way down. The front end heavily damaged and the nose away from the chassis. So that's the drama that you don't want to have in that early stage of the race.
Yeah, that was Josephine Becker who ended up buried in the tyres then after that initial contact. So that created the chain reaction for those two, and we talked about it. Turn 2. It's going to be very difficult on the opening laps. The main drafting straight now brings itself into play, and Nieva thinking about going to the outside. Half a car, if not a full car's width defence then from Jack David Spickett. Holds his station well. Cocchi in 5th, Morse in 6th. Candelis just behind that, having a scrap with Mickey Friesen, but for the moment it's Ricardo Ruiz. They're in 15th position. That was Yanni Lehmann, who's had a great start, up 6 on the opening lap. Sorry, up 5 on the opening lap to get to 14th. Whoa!
Oh dear, trouble
Cocchi.
on the start finish straight.
Oh,
dearie me.
I think he's come together there, Alex, with Henry Morse, the championship leader.
Yeah, I mean, talking about people going for championships, looking at Formula 2, Tobias Hardenby's now up into 17th. Josephine Becker, who qualified 12th, she was rounding out the top 5 in the Formula 2 standings, and that would have put her on a really, really good run to try and close it on Hardenby, Tomaski and Linden in the top of the Formula 2 standings. But now that she's down all the way in 28th, that's going to be an opportunity that has just fallen by the wayside for the number 20 for Formula 2. But yeah, I mean, we're getting a bit of a bottleneck here. We said about the undulation of this circuit. You've got the likes of Yanis Carpentier battling with Robert Plumley, Grissinger, Hardenby there in 17th. There is an absolute flood of activity, and everyone is still in this early stage here on lap 2, jockeying for position as we're coming up with a replay.
We certainly are, and this was Josephine Becker on the start, so she puts it in for turn 2, and I think she just catches a bump in the middle of the corner, tries to catch it away, and John Olsen's a passenger there on the outside. Nothing you can do about it. That's how quickly it can go from 0 to 0. So for Josephine Becker, not what the doctor ordered. Gary Ho in a battle. We can confirm that Arturas Kondelis is out of the race after that contact at the end of lap 1, start of lap 2. Nicola Cocchi has continued to keep the car running, but obviously that contact with Henry Morse making big strides about it. Ho, close as you like at the moment here, with the likes of Jem Matsan having a great day today in 9th position. Mickey Friesen there in 7th. And keep an eye on the race lead, because there is nothing but a piece of paper between the top 2 at the moment. Mick Claridge needs every point he can get his hands on, but for the moment, Oye Samayoa is going to be the biggest help for Henry Morse.
Yeah, he's really gathering speed as the gap is just over a 10th and a half. We're to be right on board with the number 2 car as they come into the final couple of corners here at turn 8 and 9. But yeah, Zamaloa giving Claridge a lot of trouble, putting the pressure on from behind as they come through the final corner. And look, Spickett and Nieva are closing in. So we've got a quartet battling for the race leader as they head down the hill through the fast right sweeper here at T1.
Yep, and really trying to work. Henry Morse now with the fastest lap, and this was Arturas Kondelis. He's late onto the scene here, so there's the side-by-side in front. It's just the tangle of tyres. Morse goes over the curb on the inside of White's corner. That puts him out into the path of Nicola Cocchi. They tangle wheels, and Kondelis just has nowhere to go with the broadsided Nicola Cocchi there in the middle of the road, into the Castrol signage, and out of the race goes the Lithuanian. Now, Henry Morse was very quick on the radio to say, I think that was netcode. I'm going to argue the other way. No, it wasn't. It was clumsy.
Yeah, and also the fact that Kondelis got a hit from behind as well whilst trying to avoid Cocchi on the start-finish straight. So it is going to be another drama. There's been further drama in Formula 2, Jake, because Zen Car, currently running 4th in the standings on 183, including drop scores, is also out of the race as well. So we're down to, well, it's actually back out on the circuit, my apologies there. 26 cars out of 30 starters. So within the first 3 and a bit laps as we go to another replay. And this is going to be what we see, another incident here for Nicola Cocchi, it seems. He's running all the way down and, oh, it's 3. Oh, that's not going to work.
When you lose position early on in the race and know that you've got to work hard to get back, you don't quite understand the level of the drivers you're racing against. So you take risks that you don't know that drivers are able to work with. 3 wide on the exit through 5C of Moss never truly works, and you do have to leave a little bit more room in these cars because of just the amount of torque that's generated from that Ford DFV Cosworth engine. The rear is going to be lit up out of every single corner.
Yeah, I think it was Grissinger that was the other party involved and lost the right rear wheel, coming straight off of the back axle as we see Jack David Spickett battling away with Jorge Nieva, and now championship leader Henry Morse is making it a quintet that will be battling for the overall race lead. This is really, really heating up as Nieva getting the slipstream. So look at Morse, he's right on the back of the number. Well, that's Nieva on Spickett. There's Morse coming through, making his way through to see if he can close that gap. And at the moment, he's doing a pretty sterling job, to be honest with you, Jake. He's just keeping everything neat and tidy, not making any mistakes, and just closing in on the pack up front. Meantime, Jason Clapper battling away with Yanni Lehmann and also Seb Clapper to boot as Henry Morse, new fastest lap at 1:16.859. So Morse is picking up the pace.
The whole thing with Seb Tixier and why he's called Seb Clapper is because Jason always chooses to not qualify, always chooses to drive from the back of the field to the front. It's what we call a last to first challenge, and he does it each and every single race because that's how he gets his fun. So Seb's decided for this season he'll do the same. They were 29th and 30th on the grid. They are now 13th and 14th after just 5 completed laps worth of racing. So they've done an incredible job of running through the field so far and looking to continue in that same vein moving forward, knowing that draft is going to be really dependent here because we've got packs of cars here and there. And now here comes Nieva for the first time with a look, and that's a big lift out by Jack David Spickett. I'm surprised he hasn't fought that.
Yeah, same here. I mean, he could have kept the elbows out and maybe make the back end of that car as wide as humanly possible, but he saw Nieva closing in a big race of knots and thought, you know what, we're at this early stage of the race, I don't need to take the risk yet, maybe later on. So he's going to follow in the wheel tracks of Nieva. Meantime, Samaloa still trying to close in on Claridge as Nieva sets the new fastest lap of the race.
1:16.807, the tyres aren't going to wear, so the more fuel is departed from these cars, the quicker they will go. And one of the things that often doesn't get looked at in a car like this, the fuel is your downforce. It acts as your downforce, it acts as the weight in the car. As that car gets lighter, it gets even more twitchy. That's why late race pace is something very, very different as you go by, and that's why sometimes later on you do see more mistakes. Jem Matzan then a little bit of side-by-side has dropped a couple spots because David Rossi has gone through, and now Yanni Lehmann wants away by as well. It looks like for Jem Matzan it was turn 2, overcooked it at Clayton's corner.
Yeah, it is just, as you rightly said, the tyres aren't going to wear, so the quicker that the drivers get through this fuel, and especially those that are having to push their way through. Oh, Nicola Cocci's having that's a third incident with Andres Bruno, the Argentinian, in the number 28. So it's gone from bad to worse for the number 3.
Yeah, to say that it's not working is an understatement. I think Cocci was trying to get by Donald Peake for place and did get a good drive off of the exit of the corner, and then went for diving down the inside of the car in front, which would have been Matthias Moran. And then with Moran, there was the drama that created the incident outright. So dramatic to say the least. There's the lunge at turn 4. He's just got so much more speed compared to everyone else. He doesn't know how to use it.
Yes, well, I mean, that just goes to show that there's desperation and then there's urgency. I think there was a bit of desperation there because of how much speed, but then the closing rate, you know, we've got drivers of varying different skills up and down the order, so there's going to be those that might get caught out either by getting a bit too quick through corners or being a little bit more trepidatious, let's say.
Yeah, and speaking of that, Seb Tixier or Seb Clapper through, making a comfortable pass on Yanni Lehmann, and Jason's turn now to try and make that move stick. Will now look to get the drive. Will pull over to the left-hand side of the circuit, which is the long way around, but doesn't quite get the same level of speed to make that launch. So that sticks them side by side as they run to turn 8. Later on, the brakes from Jason around the outside, overcooked by Jason. Will go into the runoff and will just about skirt around in the grass to save it. So loses a bit of time as Seb decides he wants Jem Matzan's position, looks to try and go up and under, and up over the top of the wheel went there, Seb. So he's lucky he's still got a car.
Yeah, and all 4 wheels being on that wagon, that was a bit of a, that was definitely a Code Brown moment right there for Seb, but he's gathered himself back up, he's dusted himself off, and now it's time to get on with the business at hand. But look at how this bottleneck is happening at the front end of the field. A quintet for the race lead. Claridge from Samaloa, and Nieva in third, Spickett and Morse at the tail end of it, and they're closing in on the number 29, the Formula 2 driver of Sencar, rounding out the 26 still running around this circuit. There's a lot less attrition than I thought there would be in this early stages here, Jake, as we're very close to hitting double digits on the laps, but more so close to the back end of Spickett there, who kicks up the grass in the current championship leader's fate. Gets a twitch of oversteer, corrects it, and up the inside. Is he going to blast his way past down the start-finish straight? Yes, he's through to 4.
Yeah, used the slingshot momentum at turn 9. Jack David Spickett was wise to it, opened up his steering, and through they went. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 all there. I was going to start talking about drop rounds because Henry Morse, his second worst drop is 41 championship points, which is the equivalent of about a 9th place finish out there overall. He'd be scoring 45 championship points in 4th place. In 5th place, so he'll be looking around at every point he can get his hands on to say, right, how do I move up and score more? And so he'll be looking to pick up 6 points here or 7 points there. He knows how critical it is to continue to score, knowing that Nick Claridge needs to be pretty much perfect from here on out to the end of the season. And you look at Jorge Nieva as well, who very much needs every point as well in the same book. Nicola Cocchi going upside down and all around, and probably about a fitting end to the way that race has gone for him. The Martini more than shaken right now, and I think everyone else in the field has been stirred by the way that the driving has gone today. But Sammy Oa then holding on to the rear of Mick Claridge. I think this isn't a case of I can't get by. I think this is a case of not an if I can pass, but a when I can pass.
Yeah, and it's about picking your moments here. Also, Matthias Marin had to tow to pit lane, so was the one that got caught out by the fast-closing Nicola Cocchi on that particular occasion. Just keeping an eye on Formula 2 at the moment, this could really help Tobias Harnby in the championship battle, because obviously Mats Linden and David Tomaski not here today. Harnby could close that championship gap going into Okayama next time out for the final round of the season. I mean, bearing in mind, he's 40 points behind Mats Linden and 39 behind Tomaski. He did make up significant progress through the field, roundabout to the top 15, but now he's had a little bit of a slump, and he's currently sitting in 19th place. He's also ahead of Donald Peake and Zencar. Josephine Becker, who's 9 laps down, I think has managed to get out onto the circuit again after a hefty trip into the pit lane. So it's going to go in the favour of Harnby, possibly heading into the final round next time out. But don't count out the likes of Donald Peake. I mean, he's down in 22nd, but he's got a little bit of time to find. That's probably the best part of 10 seconds. Try and pass Tobias Harnby for what I think is effectively the Formula 2 class lead.
Yep, so for Tobias Harnby, now here's the interesting scenario as we watch the top 5 dancing down the hill. Once again, 19th place, yes, but F1 and F2 share the same points pool out there. That doesn't mean that you get 60 points for winning in F2. You get wherever you finish. Right now, 19th place, you'd be starting to look down the orders about the mid-30s in terms of points. So that would bring the gap down to about 10 out there overall. So that's where the focus is going to be in terms of how you're going to bring those points back. So it will bring the gap right down, but then you're still going to have to overtake those 2 drivers on the final round. On the back of the train, Jack David Spickett having eyes on Henry Morse, the championship leader, Jorge Nieva, the eternal bridesmaid, and Mick Claridge, who has seen it all, done it all, won it all. They hit the brakes, in they go to turns 8 and 9 of the S's, and once more parity restores itself as we head towards the halfway lap 13 of 26.
Yeah, Gary Ho.
What again?
Yeah.
Sorry, let's cut you off. It's again Henry Morse having a look. This time he wants it on the Ava.
And he's going to try and throw it in the inside here at T1, but the Ava blocks it off rather nice and neatly as Jack David Spickett right on the tail end of the championship leader through into turn 2. Down the hill they go. Meantime, there's been a change for 7th place. Gary Ho has got past Mickey Frierson. So the number 7 deposes the number 12 down to 8th position, who's got a 5-second gap over the number 15 of David Rossi, with Ricardo Ruiz rounding out your top 10, admirably enough, in the 10 car itself.
Yeah, so car 10, P10, a gain of 3 so far, but Henry Morse out the top 5, would you argue here, Alex, has looked the most aggressive out of them, the most likely to make a move each and every time?
He's looked the most consistent with regards to how composed he's looking at the moment. So he's picking his moments. He's waiting for the optimum time to strike, whether he can force a move or whether he waits for an unforced error from one of those 3 drivers in front. But the way that Claridge and Zamaloa sprinted off into the distance early doors, whilst they've been having their own intra-car battle, the 3 behind have closed the pace on. And looking at the lap times, Henry Morse last lap was a 1:16.9. Jorge Nieva 1:16.7. Oh yeah, Zamaloa 1:16.593, new fastest lap of the race. Mick Claridge running in the mid 1:16.7. So they're pretty level on pace at the top 5, apart from Jack David Spickett, who was running a high 1:16.9.
And that's what happens when you get cars that sort of conjunct together and get very close. You're always looking at, okay, is the whole train keeping a relative pace? And within 4/10 of each other, yes, the carriages essentially open up and close back down again, but they are still within the same level. It's not like we've got a car that's a second away, and the big difference maker is there. Once more along the stretch and trying to find opportunities. Zamaloa once more just trying to look to that outside, get in the mirrors, get large against Mick Claridge, force him to work, force him to sweat. Mick's the sort of driver who's normally in VR. That's a little check up on the brakes, then through 8 into 9, and this is where you've got to be alert. And again, there's a search to the inside from Henry Morse. He's been so good at extending turn 9 to throw it down the inside. Nieva, I think, is getting wise to that. He got the car wide, he got the elbows out and said, there's no lane for you to have that a charge over at turn 10, White's corner.
Yeah, he was making it really, really difficult for Morse to try and find a way through on the number 1 car. And it's only going to be a matter of time before Morse pulls the trigger and Nieva can't respond to it. But the more that Morse is stuck behind, the bigger opportunity this gives to the man in 5th position, Jack David Spickett, as now it's Zamaloa and Claridge nearly wheel to wheel. Claridge round the outside nearly cuts off the nose of Zamaloa, quite literally, not just figuratively, but physically out on the race circuit.
Oh, look at Morse.
Oh, he's going for it now. He's going to throw it to the outside of Nieva, but Nieva's going to have the traction pull here. Morse is going to have to slip back into his wheel tracks, and Spickett is just waiting in the wings to pick up the pieces. He knows that if anything goes awry now, he's got an opportunity of going for the race win.
It's like watching a terrier with Henry Morse, as now Zamaloa finally gets side by side now, heading to turn 9, extended around the outside by Mick Claridge. Morse again tries to throw it 3 wide through the middle. Nieva has to leave the room. Henry Morse finally gets his pass up into 3rd position, and with that dogged attacking style of anywhere I can find a gap, he gets there. Almost has a nibble of the right rear of Zamaloa as well for good measure, but what brilliant tenacity. Henry Morse is driving like a champion.
It was 2 wheels on the curb, and he just prompted it straight away because Nieva was going for the move on Zamaloa, who went wide coming out of that final corner, and Morse went, right, here's my opportunity. I know I've got slightly more than a car's width. I'll make it work, and by God, did he.
It was some wonderful wheeling, and again, he's just looking every corner, trying to be aggressive, trying to find a way through. Oye Zamaloa hasn't driven too much this season, but is a driver who can win races at the drop of the hat. He doesn't need much time behind the car, but look out, because here comes Nieva, who will look to attack back in the left-hand mirror as they now run along the Mario Andretti straightaway. Zamaloa's wise to this, tries to give a bit of toe over to Jorge, who can't quite get the angle on the outside of 8 to go and make that pass. All the while, half a second now in the back pocket of Mick Claridge. He realises it's time to wheel, but again the lunge comes in. Oh, Henry! What a move that is. He'll have to confirm it here through turn 1, and Nieva thinks about 3 wide, but thinks the better discretion, the better part of valour. Henry Morse is now 2nd. Twice
in 2 laps, lightning striking twice for the number 5 from the USA. That was absolute poetry in motion. That is a sweet spot for him. And now he's got to start chasing. There's 10 laps to go, and the gap between Morse and Claridge is around about 6.5 to 7/10 of a second. So Morse has now got to engage high speed and go hunting.
Well, I'd say they've got to go like the Clappers, and the Clappers are 10th and 12th at the moment in this race, so they are very much going as it stands. David Spickett then watching on, waiting here as Nieva doesn't get the best of Moss Corners there through the middle, completely tempers the run and loses about 6 car lengths then along the stretch, so that's going to be a lot of work to try and gather that back. Samayoa remaining close, but any time they can gain, I think we're going to see a little truce for the next couple of laps or so here, Alex, because of the fact that they want to catch back up to Mick. The big prize is winning this race.
Yeah, and definitely Henry Morse will want to do everything in his power, throw the complete playbook at Mick Claridge once he gets that opportunity. And if he's got a sniff at that final corner, expect the fact that Morse will throw it at the inside with a little bit of recklessness combined with a little bit of style at the same time.
And Henry Morse has had a wonderful mid-part of the season as Mickey Friesen continues on. This is 7th and 8th at the moment between Gary Ho and Mickey Friesen. And just looking at the times, they are dropping about half a second a lap now to Gary Quellin. So this is practically now a battle between these two drivers. They work their way through. That's Michael Grissinger, the lap traffic, as Seb eyes up 9th. So this will be against Ricardo Ruiz then for position. This is for a gain of 21 in a 30-car field.
Wow, that's what you nearly call a top gear from the rear there by Seb. He's done a sterling job, just kept his nose clean. Jason currently down in 12th position in the number 11 car, and he's about 4.85 seconds behind David Rossi in the number 15. But still, for them both to start from the back row of the grid to where they are now, that just goes to show that here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, you've got to be on your A game all the while. Still, well, it's closing now. Morse has got the gap down to about 0.3 of a second to Mick Claridge. Zamaloa, Nieva and Spickett still there. Spickett, new fastest lap of the race, 1:16.409 with 8 to go. It's game on for the race victory, but each one of these 5 drivers have put on a hell of a show so far.
They've all put themselves in with a position at some point. It's gloves off, it's knuckle dusters on. Robert Plumley then in 14th position. The Londoner looking for a move here on Jem Matzan, who has done very well to hold over the course of this race in what is 13th position, a gain of 4 over the course of the run. But now to the outside tries Robert, looking for an angle. Janne Lehmann there just behind, as well as Kurt Clapper. Fantastic group of 4, and this is where the lifeblood of the series is. It's not always just at the top, it's the mid-pack as well. That's too deep by Jem Matzan, but gathers it up off the exit.
Yeah, nice recovery there from the 13th place driver in the number 23. As there we see the number 17 of Kurt Clapper now in 15th position. And it just goes to show how close these battles are. Of course, they're the same vehicle for everybody. Everyone's in the same boat. Everyone's got to get a quick handle on the circuits that they race at. But nevertheless, it's just mesmerising to watch when you get these packs of battles happening, as Ricardo Ruiz battling with David Rossi, and Ruiz in the wonderful Golf liveried colours there as well. But again, we go back to this battle for the 13th, 14th. Matzan, Plumley, Clapper, et al. Just going elbows out, tooth and nail, and you could just see at some points there's drivers that will be very... and Morse nearly looked for a move there through turn 2 on Mick Claridge. Oh, he's right with him, and so is Zamaloa, but Nieva and Spickett, they're going to be hot on their heels. As now, look at this. 4 cars in a line, covered by about a second.
5 within a second, and at turn 4, which is never normally a place to pass, Henry Morse had an eye for the inside. Mick Claridge right now is going to be put right under the pressure cooker, and this time, when you look around, Henry Morse has been proving this season how good he's been. He had a stretch of 5 straight wins from Portland to Spa, and now he's looking to take Mick Claridge on. Mick, a driver who once upon a time in this series had 11 straight victories in a row, is looking around, seeing that the new horse is in town down, and he has got to outrun him here in Toronto. Mick holding himself steady, but 6 laps of this style of defending. He needs those 2 Spaniards behind, Samayoa and Nieva, to get aggressive. Big slide, huge slide there by Henry Morse. Samayoa gets a freebie. Thank you very much.
Well, that just goes to sometimes that if you're running at a gallop than a canter, you can sometimes overcook it, and that's exactly what we saw with Henry Morse. But now he's gathered himself back up again. He's going to try and see if he can thread the eye of the needle past Samaloa and close back in once more to Mick Claridge, who now has a lead of about 5.5 tenths of a second. And Morse to the outside, 2 wheels on the grass, and he's nearly in the barriers. He's skirting, he's flirting with disaster, and he's all the way down to 5th on that exchange.
How on earth has he, well, A, kept out the barriers for 1, and B, actually put it in there for 2? That's a case of he looked to the outside, overcommitted the room, and then he had to try and hold on to what was a Bronco at that moment. And that might be a moment that really changes the championship, because that is completely unforced.
Yeah, that just goes to show how quickly things can change. He was right in the draft of Claridge, and it just went a bit horribly wrong for the number 5, and now he's dropped off. And now we've got 5 laps to go here, Jake, and it's the top 4: Claridge, Samaloa, Nieva and Spickett. But if Morse can gather himself up again, it's going to be a difficult one to ask, because that gap is fluctuating between 1 second to 1.2. He might be able to close it up, but how far can he close it up in these next 5 laps? That's the big question that he needs to answer right now.
Well, how much of a gap can be pulled back in? You look around at Samayoa, he showed a lot of patience in the early phases of the race, knowing that Mick Claridge had control of the race. We didn't really see too much of a throw in any sort of direction. Henry Morse knows now that he has got to drive at 100%. He sees the group in front and knows now at 1 second away. Oh, there goes the lunge, down the inside, contact, round goes Nieva, he gets tapped once, he gets tapped twice. Henry Morse is going to pick that one up and move up into 4th position. Jack David Spickett looking for the inside, trying the Morse line, and it doesn't quite pay off. He was very narrow in, and just the tiniest of taps means JDS is up to 3rd.
Meantime, Oyazamaloa has put in the new fastest lap of the race. Has been a drama for Ricardo Maurice, who was running 10th at one point a few laps ago. But Zamaloa has got that gap down to 0.3 of a second between himself and Claridge. And that could be crucial, but that just depends on how hard he wants to push. We're going to have a look at the replay now, coming up. And this is Henry Morse's. I saw some sparks fly, so he grazed the barrier, and this is coming down the Mario Andretti straightaway. Like literally, sparks fly, but the car still had 4 wheels on it, and he kept that throttle fully lit.
He was pinned down. He knew it's either going to be a fireball or I'm going to save it, and he saved it. Ricardo Ruiz's issue was a spin out of Moss. That's why he's dropped the time. And Yanni Lima now up into 15th. There's still less than a second between the top 5. They are coalescing back together once again with what will be now 3 laps to go here around this place. Plumley in the middle of a massive group. Kurt Clapper's gone through on him, and now Jem Matzan holding them up. This is 12. This is a wonderful scrap.
Yeah, I mean, Plumley's definitely decided to hunker down and get on with things, and he's closing in on 13th position. You could just see the suspension travel, the upper and lower suspension arms bouncing up and down as they go through the undulation and the camber changes here at the circuit. And we've right on board a wonderful camera shown here on the left side of Robert Plumley's car as he comes out of the final corner. He's right with Clapper as they head down the hill into turn number 1. And you can hear through the throttle and brake manipulation that the drivers are having to contend with through that downhill sweeper at 1. Now through into 2. And you can see that Plumley's taking a little bit of a tighter apex line. He's actually flirting with the grass as well, just to close that gap. Just to close the gap and do just enough.
in the colours, which look a little bit like he can't believe it's not butter, but at the moment I can't believe it's not an overtake that he can find at the moment. To the outside now tries Kurt, who will look to attack up the hill against Jem Matzan at Moss, and they will stay in line as they go. A lap and just 3/4 remaining for your leading group though, and Mick Claridge is still holding a margin, but it's only 0.3 of a second here. He's forcing everyone to go at 100% to chase, and there is traffic on the horizon in the form of Dom Peak.
Yeah, so this is going to be very, very crucial how the drivers negotiate these last couple of laps, as Kurt Clapper again trying to go on the offensive against Matzan for 12th position, and well, Kurt Clapper might find himself at the behest of Plumley, who's got Yanni Lyman looking to the inside through into turn 1, and Lyman gets the nose ahead initially, but Plumley able to use the power of the car round the outside of the opening corner. But here we go for the race lead. Claridge versus Zamaloa. It's game on with this and one more lap to go.
Oye Samayoa with the Basque colours on the front of his car, looking for a way to get by the driver representing Tuvalu today in Mick Claridge. These two have built themselves a second to work with, so if anything goes wrong, it's Jack David Spickett and Henry Morse. Keep an eye on Henry, because he'll need that third place for every single point he can possibly get his hands on to battle against Mick Claridge. Remember, it's 10 points with drops coming into today. If it finishes as it does, the drop margin will be 1 point between them heading to Okayama. Mick desperately trying to hold on. Henry trying to find a move, but he drops a couple tenths here. And Jack David Spickett now finds himself on an island. It's all about Oye at the moment. Up at Sir Sterling Moss's corner. Turns 5A, B, and C. And now on the Mario Andretti straightaway. Drive is everything. Zamayoa has not even thrown a punch, and he waits for one haymaker to try and win this one. Claridge now holding himself on the line. Here comes Oye to the outside, looking for an angle. It's not quite there through turn 8. He's going to have to be aggressive here through the mid part of the corner to open up 9 and get to 10. Claridge very aggressive through turn 9, and he holds his line. Oye desperate to get drive off the exit, has his run balked. Mick Claridge, clutch as it gets, takes the win and closes that gap down, heading to Okayama.
Wow, just over a tenth separating the top two at the line after 26 enthralling laps. We've still got this battle between Matzan, Clapper, Plumley and Lyman. This is for 12th position on the road. They're going to have to get through the back marker traffic that's just ahead of them, which is very quickly expedited. That was Grissinger in the number 25, who has rejoined 14 laps down. But Yanni Lyman looking to the outside of Plumley. Is he going to make it work? It's going to be close, because he might get the inside line for the left-hander. And he's not going to make it at this moment in time. But Matzan's going to take 12th ahead of Clapper, Plumley and Lyman. And that was a very, very close finish between those drivers. Just keeping an eye on Formula 2. Tobias Harnby is going to come across the line in 20th at the flag, which means he's going to effectively become the de facto Formula 2 winner here today at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
Some brilliant racing up and down the order, and we'll get confirmation of result then on your screen. When you need to find a victory the most, Mick Claridge is finding perfect form. That's his 4th win of the season, and it comes as back-to-back between here and Sebring last week, and wins by just a tenth of a second over Oye Samayoa. You then got Jack David Spickett in 3rd with Henry Morse, an up and down and all-around day, but one mistake on the backstretch that cost him ultimately 2 places in today's racing. Jorge Nieva will take a respectable 5th place finish and some consistent points to keep a small slither of hope alive, heading to Okayama with the Garys, Quellin and Ho 6th and 7th. Seb Clapper from the back of the field to 8th place. Mickey Friesen would finish 9th, and also from the back, Jason Clapper would round out your top 10.
So David Rossi would finish 11th ahead of Jem Matzan, who had that great battle with Kurt Clapper, Robert Plumley and Yanni Lyman, who round out the top 15. Ricardo Ruiz was running in the top 10 finishes 16th ahead of Bjorn Ackermann with Juan Rodriguez, Yanis Carpentier, and Tobias Harnvey are Formula 2 class winner, rounding out your top 20.
All these drivers, then, with the exception of Thomas Tuber, are a lap down or worse. A lap down for Don Peak, for Andres Bruno, and for Zen Carr. 9 laps down and did finish in the end, Josephine Becker, but Michael Grissinger also finishing with 14 laps down. Your retirees, Matthias Maran, along with Nicola Cocchi, Arturas Candelis, and John Olsen early on in the race finding retirement, and that a real shame for those 2 drivers as they look to get their seasons situated and finished. But Alex, what an incredible run of racing that we have just had here at Motorsport. And I think it goes to show that when you get to racing action like this championship is on a knife edge. Every race, every lap, every corner means everything, because if you even so much as breathe wrong in one part of this season, the entire season goes away. It's been that competitive.
Well, I mean, especially when you consider that we're going to have literally 1 point between the top 2 in each of the Formula 1 and the Formula 2 battles provisionally going into the season finale at Okayama. That is going to be a really, really tough circuit to get your head around. Of course, it's going to be close, it's going to be compact, just like here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. So you cannot leave any stone unturned, especially if you're like a couple of points away from the top of the standings. And whoever comes out on top will definitely have earned it at the season finale next time out.
And with both championships here, both F1 and F2, pretty much as close as you could possibly house it heading into that. Who stands out to you, Alex, as a driver who will go to the next level and say, I want this championship, and will have the fortitude to go and pick it up?
I think, firstly, with Formula 1, you've got to look at Mick Claridge, how steely he was all the way through that race, and he didn't put a foot wrong. Henry Morse has got to give everything. He's got to do 115% next time out at Okayama. I think really it's going to be interesting in the Formula 2 battle as well, when you have got the likes of Mats Linden, David Tomaski, Tobias Harnvey. That is going to be a close battle, and I'm really going to be interested to see how that develops at Okayama as well.
Well, we will soon see, and of course that is in 7 days' time, ladies and gentlemen, so keep an eye out on that. We want to give a massive thanks then as we go through, but that is the track, September 6th. Their Okayama International Circuit, a track every sim racing driver should know like the back of their hand. It is iRacing free content, and it means we could get a big grid then for the final race of the season. So check that out with us as we go through. Want to give a massive thanks to the team then as they've gone through. But before we do, just at the 11th hour, jumping in, your race winner back-to-back now for Mick Claridge. And Mick, as far as that goes for you, at this crunch time point of the season, seeing how dominant the mid-season was for Henry Morse, how critical was this win today for you?
Yeah, how's the championship look? Do you know? I don't know, Jake. I never understand how the championship works with the drop weeks and everything, but yeah, I think he got 4th, didn't he, Henry? So yeah, that's a good result for me today.
You know how important these points are, and you pretty much played roughshod from the front of the field, but it wasn't as easy as that because you had Henry behind you, you had Oye behind you, looking to shadow you, and at no point, I don't think, did you have any chance to rest.
No, not one. It was just intense from the first lap. I scuffed up the last chicane, well, the huge right after the back straight on the first lap. And that got rid of any gap I had on the first lap, because that's normally my best lap, is out the lights and off, and then I'll see how it goes from there. But yeah, I messed that up, so everyone was on me from that point. And oh yeah, Jesus, he just comes in cold like this every now and again, and races with us, and he just stuck it in the front row, and he's there on pace. He's such a brilliant driver. I'm so proud to beat him, to be honest with you. I don't think I've ever beaten him before.
He is one of those drivers who is incredible out there when he just jumps in and does what he does. But for you, Mick, there is a championship to think about. If it's not as close as it possibly gets, we're talking a couple points probably in the championship one way or the other. How do you now go and tackle Okayama? What's your mindset knowing that you're picking up key points at the crucial end of the season?
Yeah, well, my mindset is the same as every week. Just bust a million laps and try and get some speed out of the car by the end of the week. That's basically what I do every week. And I mean, you know yourself, Jake, I was such a stinky season with all these hardware failures and all the rest of it. I just can't believe I'm here at the end to actually sort of try and fight for it. So, yeah, I'm just going to bust out a ton of laps and see if I can get on pace. It's one of my worst tracks. I'll always admit that. It's never my best. I don't really like it. I don't like the slow section at the end. You know, the really slow left and right there at the end. It really messes up my practice, because it just feels like you can never get any real speed there. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll try my best, you know.
We'll wish you the best of luck when it comes to 7 days from now. Mick Claridge there joining us and picking up the win for the 4th time this season as we now get ourselves over towards conclusion. I want to thank the team who has got this over to you here today, from Alex Goldschmidt, Daniel Costello, Christian Deploy, and from Dougie Beard as well. This has been a Genesis Extreme production. There is a lot of amazing racing coming up with us here on the Global Sim Racing channel, including later on today. You can join me at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve with IMSA Vintage as they look to try and tackle their penultimate round of the season. And tomorrow we'll be back with the 79s, which will take the fearsome Red Bull Ring as its next challenge. And then, of course, for what is coming up on Championship Saturday, of course, a week from now, Okayama, as we talked about, and then IMSA Vintage, which will be going from Watkins Glen with no chicanes to be told. But as far as a day will go, it's about giving yourself an opportunity with 2 races to go. In golf, they would call this day moving day. This was a day where you had to try and give your best. Henry Morse, a scare that could have cost him the title, but gives him still a chance to battle. But you look around at the driver who has got himself back-to-back victories, Mick Claridge, holding off the Basque Battle Guard in Oye Samayoa, and says, this is my rock still to defend, and I will do so with 1 round to go. We will see you in 7 days when we battle at Okayama.
This is iRacing.